Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be going over every single player that is top 8 a major in 2023. You have this list here which was made by EAZYFREEZIE. His link will be down below. As always, it makes a lot of good stuff. I recommend you check it out. But you have the list here. You have the percentages of top 8s they've been in, the amount of majors that they've attended, as well as their highest placement at that major event. If they're getting a top 3 there, if they're getting a second place, if they're getting a first place, or if they're just going to get a 4th to 8th place. So let's just get right into it. Starting off with Suinoko, and interestingly enough, he's actually the only Young Link player on this list, despite there being so many players in contention for that title of Best Young Link. You have Kobe, you have Skittles, you have Jadizzle, but Suinoko, the only one who actually did get top 8 in a major, so shouts to him for that. Omatsu as well, who I consider the best midman for a short period of time, while Proto Bonham was on absence, and before Dormiggy did that absolutely ridiculous stuff, but now that Proto Bonham is back, I definitely wouldn't give him that title anymore. Still a very talented player, though, with the top 8 at Wave 4. Kome and Pasariman also getting their top 8s at Wave 4. Kome getting his at a 3rd place, though, so huge shouts to him for that. Only Shulk on this list as well. Despite people claiming that this character is very good, you don't really see a ton of results from it, though, but other characters are going to be having that at the top of. I mean, Pikachu's another great example of that. I think only Shining Mark is going to be appearing on this list. You have Torier and Tsubaki, who do really well towards the start of the year, but the results haven't been as good since then. Matsunabe as well, who's in contention for that best Falco alongside Masa. Tilda is actually not on this list, but to be fair, Tilda didn't go to a ton of majors yet this year, so we'll see if maybe later on in the year he picks it up and starts going to more stuff, maybe gets his first top 8. You have Kananabe as well, so Pasariman and Kananabe, they've been battling it out for that title of Best Fox in Japan, and you do have Kananabe getting a top 8 at a major that is bigger than Pasariman's. You know, Pasariman getting it Wave 4, Kananabe getting it at Meisuma top 11, so it's going to be interesting to see who takes that title of Best Fox in Japan towards the end of the season. Next up, you have a group of Japanese players that I feel like are fairly underrated. You have Yamanaction, who I would say is probably the best Luigi in Japan, though he does use a combination of Steve and Luigi, which definitely helps out in contention for best Luigi in the world. Right now, I would still give that title to Luigi. You have Takai, who's also extremely underrated. He got his top 8 at Calvin 5, as well as beating DeBuzz at Kagadibi, leading to that insane loser run. You have Shiryuki, who is making Inkling work in the modern-day world, which is impressive enough on itself. Neo as well, who I would give the title of best Corn with his run at Meisuma top 12. That is definitely the best peak this character has had, aside from Leo, because Leo has some ridiculous results, but that is Leo, so you know what, we're going to let it slide. You have Now with his run at Kagadibi 9. He hasn't been able to replicate it recently, and Snow has been catching up to him, though, but with this top stat at Kagadibi 9, he might be able to take his title of Best Mario in Japan. DeBuzz as well, surprisingly, his only top 8 this year is going to be at Kagadibi 10, which is the best tournament to do it at, but I usually am used to seeing DeBuzz in more top 8s, but he started off a little bit more rough, and then the recent tournaments that he's been to, he's been doing well, but he just hasn't been quite getting into that top 8. He's also been doing really well at regional events, like he won CEO, he won Combo Breaker, but they don't count for majors, so he only has one major at a top 8, but I don't think it really reflects the season. I think his season's actually been pretty good. Mudace as well. Now, Mudace had a pretty rough Japan trip, but Genesis 9 is one of the highest peaks we have seen in Smash Ultimate. That tournament is incredible. He beats Acola, Meister, Glutiny, Light, and MK Leo for a 2nd place. Like, that is an unreal run from Mudace. Next up, you're going to have Jagaimo, who is in contention for that best Palutena player in the world. Now, I would still give the best Paulo to Chase, but Jagaimo is definitely a serious contender for it. Apollo Kage as well, kind of like DeBuzz. I feel like this one top 8 doesn't reflect how good his season actually was. And luckily, it was at Summit, which was an event where he got wins on MK Leo and Glutini. So, huge shouts to Apollo Kage. He really is extremely talented, pushing the Snake meta super hard. Tora as well. We saw Tora do super well towards the start of the year. It looks like they were going to be really in contention for the title of best Samus alongside Yara and Siski, but they haven't really had any results similar to Umawara SB9. Curious to see if they're going to be able to bounce back. Niatono as well getting top 8 with Diddy Kong, so he was able to switch from Pichu and get a top 8 within a pretty short time frame. Like, usually when people are switching their mains, it takes a really long time for them to get back, and he hasn't fully dropped Pichu, but the Diddy Kong has been doing a lot of work very quickly. You have Mr. E, who got his top 8 level of Expo. He looked so good at the event. Like, Mr. E looked absolutely ridiculous. I hope we can see him replicate that again, because I'm a fan of some good Lucina gameplay. MK Big Boss as well with his run at Let's Make Big Moves, where he got a bunch of good wins, including Sonic's and Sonic Rob, which feels really hard to do. You have Cola, who gets his top 8 at level of Expo. Cola also hasn't been going to as much stuff. As you can see, there is the percentage here. He's only been to 5 major events, and some of those were the hardest major events to actually get a top 8 at. So even though it's only 1 of 5, it's not the end of the world. He has some pretty decent results at regional as well. You have Jogabu, who I would say is the best Captain Falcon in the world at this point, even though Karage is really good. You have a couple other ones are good. Sean's good. Andrek's good. Fatality's always a name you got to throw in there. Jogabu just looks insanely impressive, and he does have that peak at Meisuma top 11. Next up, we're going to have Hikaru with his third place at Japan 24, and he hasn't been doing as well since then, but to be fair, he has added Sora to his roster as his primary character, so it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get back to that top level of owning, but anyone that is able to get top 8 at a major at any point with Donkey Kong will be someone that I have faith in literally till the end of time. You have Base Mage as well, who has a top 8 with Jigglypuff, which is insanely impressive. Like, this character isn't bad by any means, but it is very hard to get this caliber of placements with Jigglypuff. So huge shout out to Space Mage for that. Definitely the best help we have in the game. Even though Senra just took a set of Acola, and even though that isn't a local, that's still pretty crazy. You have Siski as well, and even though he does lose his title of the best Samus in the world, he is still an extreme threat. He does top 8 King of Fields, as well as getting a 9th place at Battle of BC. So Siski's amazing. Masha as well has his top 8 at Japan 24 and a 9th place at Cognibi, getting a bunch of good wins there. Like, he's another extremely underrated player. Lima's another one. I feel like when people are talking about Bayonetta players, they usually talk about Bloom. But Lima is crazy. He's the only Bayonetta player so far this year to actually get top 8 in a major at Collision, where he got wins on players like Tweak, Shiny Mark, beat a bunch of top talent along the way. Karage as well, also getting his top 8 at Maizuma top 11. So both times a Captain Falcon player is top 8 in a major this year. It's been the same tournament with Karage and Jogabu doing the same one. You have Eazy's, who was Aegis, who got his top 8 at Delta 4, if y'all remember that. They did a ditto between Riddles and Aegis, and it was one of the best dittos I have ever seen in Smash Ultimate. But Eazy's very good player, one of the only Terrys on this list. Outside of Riddles, I think he is the only solo main Terry, so huge ups in for that. You have Dora Migi with his recent run at Maizuma top 13, which we talked about recently, but my god, what an incredible run from him. Just looks so good. Next up, you're going to have Dio, who does have the highest placement of any snake in the year with his run at Umabora. I would value that over Apollo Kage's run at Summit, but I would still have Apollo Kage as the best snake in the world just because regional performances, plus a bunch of great runs from Apollo Kage. They just don't quite make the top 8, but Dio, very good. I would say the best snake in Japan for now because Hurt is very close on his trail, but we'll have to see how that plays out. You have Quick as well getting a 3rd place at Kingfield. Really strong run from him. I think that is the highest placement we've seen from any Samus this year, so he's got to be feeling good about that. Oden with his run at Crown, really nice run from Oden there, and he started off the season a little bit weaker as well, didn't perform at the 2 majors he went to before, so got to be feeling good about that. Tarek, who I would say is the best Greninja in the world right now, getting his top 8 at King of Fields, his other placement being a 17th at Battle of BC, so 50% at the major appearance. That's pretty good to get top 8. Shiny Mark as well, similar things. Doesn't do as well at Battle of BC, but has an insane run at Collision where he beats MK Leo. Looked amazing at that tournament. Modsai with his run at King of Fields looked really strong there with a combination of Pac-Man and Kazuya. You have Mars, who has 2 majors. One of them level up X, will be top 8s. The other one be Genesis, where he got a 9th place, so this is amazing for Mars. Even though he didn't go to a ton of stuff, he still has a lot of really strong results. You have Luigi as well, who gets a 2nd place at King of Fields. Looked crazy there, as well as a pretty nice run at Battle of BC, getting 25th. Unfortunately, had to fight Kameme and Spargo for elimination at that tournament, so all things considering, he did do pretty good. And then you have Space, who has 100% at the majors. There's only a couple other players on this list that have that, so big ups to Space for that. That's an incredibly impressive metric to have, and he only, again, really had one chance to prove himself at King of Fields because that is Europe's only major, but he took the time to perform, and he did. Next up, you're going to have Cosmos, who has his first top 8 at Level Up Expo, as well as the first player who has a multiple top 8, so from now on, everyone's going to have more than one top 8. He only has a 20% top 8, but to be fair, Cosmos does have a handful of 9th places this year. He's come close a lot of times. Towards the start of the season is where his results were a little bit better, but towards the end, they weren't as amazing. Not the end of the world, though. I still think it's a good season overall. He does have 2 top 8s at the major level. You have Takara as well, who's a player that I think has flown under a lot of people's radars. Definitely the best Ken player in the world. Takara is ridiculously good, gets a top 8 at Delta 4, as well as his 5th place at Maizuma top 13 recently, so got to be feeling good about that. I am as well, another player that's looking under a lot of people's radars. He is definitely the best Sheik player in the world. I feel like people thought it was maybe Mr. R, maybe it's Void. No, it is for sure I am. He is crazy good, this character, the only one to be on this list with Sheik as well. You have Yara, who again, I do think is the best Samus player in the world. I mean, he beat Spargo at Kagaribi. That's really all I have to say. He is insane. T as well. Only 2 top 8s, a little bit of a weaker season from T with a 28.57% top 8 appearance. Like, it's not amazing from him. Now, he does have a top 8 at Maizuma as well as a 2nd place in Umabora, so it's not the end of the world, but it's not the usual peaks that we're seeing. Masa as well. Masa got more of his results towards the start of the season, was looking really well there. I think Matsudabe has been performing more towards the latter end, but overall, you might still give Masa the title of best Falco in the world, at least for this season, of course. And then you have Meister, who had a little bit of shakiness towards the start, and then had Collision where he went crazy, and then had Battle of BC where he went crazy again. Like, those 2 tournaments, Meister was looking amazing, and I think if he's always playing that, we could definitely see him getting back to the top 10. Next up, you're going to have Jacko, who I would say is the best wolf in the world right now. You have Mosh with a couple good results. You have a Tourneys with a couple good results. Ouch as well, even though he isn't on this list. He has a lot of very strong runs. But Jacko, after that run at Crown, I mean, that is a ridiculous placement. One of the best ones from Wolf that we have seen in a very, very long time. So he's definitely the best wolf in the world for me right now. Chase as well, being the best Palatino, only Palatino player to get multiple top 8s at Major Upset and Crown. And he's an up-and-comer as well. He's a fairly new player to the top level. And I think we're only going to see his results get better. You have Zachary as well, who's a really weird example right now because he has 4 majors. One of them, Umambora, does okay there. Then he has a very nice Kaguribi 9 run, goes absolutely crazy there. His next major does pretty bad. Then the next Kaguribi 10, goes crazy there, gets another 3rd place, and he does it with Pit. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm curious to see, does Zachary stay fully on the Pit? Because clearly the Pit is working sometimes, or does he go in more better characters that are going to be easier to get wins with, like a Rob, like a Joker, maybe even the Wolf. Please bring it back. You have SkyJ as well, gets 2 top 8s with his peak at Collision, obviously being incredible, as well as his really nice run at Summit. Big D as well, his peak at Summit is insane, beating Acola at that tournament, as well as a bunch of other good players, as well as his really nice run at Major Upset. You have Proto Bonham, our second player on this list, with a 100% appearance in the top 8 of majors, only going to 2 majors this year in Ultimate Summit 6, as well as Maysuma top 13. So he hasn't been a super top threat just because he hasn't been doing things, but clearly when he does show up to events, he still can perform. And if he ever does start tryharding again, super going back to a bunch of events, he's definitely someone that could break into the top 10, like easily. Proto Bonham is unreal. Now you have people with 3 major appearances, starting off with Ken, who has some really nice placements. Most notably, you do have that 2nd place at Maysua top 11. He went absolutely ridiculous at that event. That combination of Sonic Sephiroth, it's a really strong one. I mean, any Sonic combination is always going to be good, but Ken Sephiroth, it's pretty good. It gets the work done. He's also taken sets off Acola this year, which is extremely impressive. Zomba's going to be the next player. Now, Zomba, start of the season wasn't amazing. He does get a nice placement at Level of Expo, top 8 that event, but aside from that, he was a little bit quiet, had a 9th place too here and there, and then he goes to Japan. And then things change. Gets a 9th place at Kagadibi, top 8's Battle BC, and wins Crown, his first ever major, and I think his first ever major of many for the way that he's been playing lately. I'm very excited to see Zomba in the second half of the season, even towards the end of the season, because he has been looking like the best player in America. Gact as well, who's definitely the best Nest in the world, like kind of undeniably. Also the only Nest to even make this list, despite there being so many reps to the character, so huge shouts to Gact for that, as well as the 3rd place at Maysuma top 12. Hito, only Bowser on this list, and also he has multiple top 8s with Bowser. Now, Bowser is by no means a bad character, but you look at the characters around him. You got a Sonic, you got a Rob, you got a Fox, you got a Nest there, to be fair, as well, but it is pretty crazy the results that Hito is able to consistently get. Next up, we're going to have Light, who gets all of his top 8s towards the start of the year. He gets a 5th place at Let's Make Big Moves, a 3rd place at Genesis, and a big win at Level of Expo, as well as a win at MomoCon, but everything else, he's been missing top 8s. Now, it's not like he's been getting terrible placements. He got 9th at both Collision and Crown, and a 13th place at Battle of BC. He's the first player on this list that I would have in my top 10 for the start of the season, but he hasn't been doing as well as late, so definitely something to look out for. Kurama has been looking good. Kurama's been looking really good. He misses top 8s at Genesis as well as at Collision. Everything else since then has been amazing. He top 8 Summit, he top 8s, I think it was Major Upset, as well as top 8ing King of Field. So Kurama, definitely an amazing player, definitely the best Mario in the world now, even though now and slow have been getting some pretty good results. He just looks unreal. His conversions are the best, his movements are the best, and he's just overall amazing. You have Umeki as well, our first player with 4 top 8s at Majors, and I feel like Umeki flew under a ton of people's radars. This guy is ridiculously good. He has the most top 8s out of any Peach and Daisy player, even with Mudace still having the peak of the character. Umeki is clearly more consistent, so huge shouts to him for that. You have Osimo as well. Osimo getting a 2nd place at Kagadibi 9 with a win on Akon, and like I said earlier with Ken, that's literally the most important win you could have in the game, and he is also just an amazing player. Next, we're going to have MK Leo, who's the 2nd player that I would have in my top 10 with only a 57.14 percentage in the top 8s. I say only, that's pretty insane, but for MK Leo, you're used to that number being 90% or higher. No, you're used to that number being 100% and literally nothing else. He gets top 8s at a lot of majors. He gets to that Major Upset. He obviously wins Genesis, which is huge. He gets top 8s. I think his other events are going to be at Let's Make Big Moves and at Crown. But outside of that, he's been doing a little bit worse. Now, again, it's kind of like Light. He's not getting abhorrent placements. They're a 9th place or or 13th place at worst, but it's definitely not the consistency that you used to see him have. You have Sonics, who only misses a top 8 at Crown, has an 80% appearance in the top 8, his peak being at Let's Make Big Moves with 3rd place there. I mean, he has wins on players like Spargo, he has wins on players like Leo, he has so many good wins. He was able to finally beat Light at Momocon, that was his biggest demon, even though he did lose the run back. Beating him once, it just shows that you can do it again. So Sonics, obviously an amazing player, also someone I would have in my top 10. And then you have Glutony, who will probably be in my top 10 with his win at King of Fields. Going to have to see. I think Gommel's going to be a huge factor for that. But Glutony has been looking amazing. The only top 8 he's missed this year is a 9th place at Battle of BC. Like, that's how on form he's been. Next up, we're going to have Kameme with his 6 major top 8s, which is insanity. He does have a couple bad ones speckled throughout there. Like, he doesn't do great at Kagalibi, but after Kagalibi, he does amazing at Battle of BC with a ridiculous lose run, and then does it again at Meisuma top 13. As was like 2nd place at Wave 4. Kameme's been looking amazing this season. He is the player that I have in my contention for top 10 in the world. You have Riddles as well. Now, he misses Summit, Battle of BC, and Genesis for his top 8s were a little bit unfortunate, especially for those 2 P tiers, but everything else has been very good. Still has 6 top 8s, is 66% in the top 8. He also has a big win at Collision, has wins on players like Leo and Spargo, has just been looking overall amazing. You have Spargo. Now, Spargo is only 6 for 8. He misses Crown and he misses Summit. Summit's definitely going to be his worst performance because he has an unranked loss there to Void. But, I mean, everything else for Spargo's been amazing. He has a bunch of major wins, including Major Upset, Battle of BC, and Kagalibi. 2 of the 3 most important events of the year over Acola as well, who is in contention for that number 1 spot with him. Very curious to see how that plays out. But Yoshidora, or rather Spargo, just looks amazing. Speaking of Yoshidora, though, he's also been looking amazing. Another player that I have in my top 10 spoilers. The rest of these players are all either in top 10 or in contention for top 10. I mean, when you have 6 major top 8s or more, you're kind of obviously there. Now, Yoshidora is the only player who hasn't been in a grand finals yet that has 6 attempts, so he doesn't have that peak, but his consistency is unreal. He's the only one doing it with Yoshi, the only Yoshi on this list, so pretty crazy from him. You have Tweak as well, like Glutony. His only miss of a top 8 this year is a 9th place at Battle of BC. He screams consistency, 85.71. That's going to be him and Yoshidora being tied at the 2nd highest, besides Acola, of course, but he's kind of an enigma, to be fair, of people that have a lot of major top 8s, like obviously a Protobonum and Space with only 2 and 1 majors attended, but Tweak overall has just been looking crazy. Next up, you're going to have Shuton, who has 7 top 8 major appearances. Now, you do have to consider that Japan has more chances than American, and especially EU and Mexican players, to actually be able to get into top 8s because they just have more majors going on. But still, 7 is so many. Like, Shuton is crazy. He does have a couple misses, which is pretty unusual for him, so hopefully he'll be able to clear those up. And he has been clearing those up lately. He's been looking extremely polished. I mean, he is just phenomenal. That run of Battle of BC is simply incredible, definitely in contention for top 10 in the world. And then you have the 2 big dogs right now in Mia and Aqua. Spargo also being on that list, of course, but Mia, he misses 2 top 8s towards the start of the year at Umabora and Kagadibi, and the Kagadibi one is a really bad placement. Everything else from Mia is pretty much perfect. I mean, he looks incredible. 82% appearance to the top 8, 9 for 11. That is just ridiculous. Multiple major wins over players like Aquila. Like, he is insane. And then, of course, you have the definition of insanity, not because he's crazy, but because he's crazy good. Aquila with 100% appearance in majors, or top 8s of majors. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely insane. 9 for 9 right now. Multiple wins under his belt. His worst placement being a 7th place at Genesis. By far, next up, it's like a 3rd place at Meisuma top 11. Like, this guy is ridiculously good. It's really hard for him to be argued not number 1 in the world when you see this consistency, but Spargo, he does have the head-to-head over him, like an extreme head-to-head. He does have the peaks. It's going to be like very, very small increments that's going to decide who's number 1 in the world. I'm excited to see who it is, and I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If there's anything I left out or got wrong, please let me know down below. Again, this is a very cool list. It was all made by EAZYFREEZIE, so please go check him out. His stuff will be down below, and that's all I got to say. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada. Thank you for everything, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.